Fabulous, and welcome everyone. We're likely to have a few more ladies jump on as they can, but we are going to record this session because we have got plenty of women who are very keen on this fabulous topic and our amazing panel today. So we're going to be talking about the side gig, taking a side gig to becoming a successful business. And we have online the wonderful Donna Vincent, Jessica Schubert, Michelle Pascoe, and Sonia La Penna, all the way from Queensland. So we're all actually in different parts of Australia, but we'll talk about that shortly. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Lynn Hawkins. I don't normally have a voice that's as raspberry, but it is a strange voice. You'll get used to it. I'm the National Director of Business Women Australia and one of the founders. And I would love to hear from you. So if you're new or you're listening to this and you haven't had anything to do with Business Women Australia before, please don't hesitate to drop me an email and I'll send you my calendar link. Very happy to have a chat. It's lynn@businesswomenaustralia.com.au. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the country in which we are meeting. We're all in various parts of Australia, from Esperance, where Laree is, right through to Queensland. We've got Jessica coming in from Melbourne. Donna's South Perth, which is a long way from me. I'm north of the river. We have women coming in from everywhere. I'm on the land of the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and I would like to acknowledge that this is sacred, sovereign, Indigenous land. It's been lived, danced and celebrated on for over 120,000 continuous years, and we pay our respects to Indigenous elders past, present and those who are emerging. And we celebrate our Indigenous sisters in business. The BWA mission is to be the #1 national collaborative community in Australia, and our focus is very much on raising the visibility of women in business. So we're keeping our eye out all the time for who are the leaders, who are the trailblazers, who are the change champions, and that we can work with and collaborate to really get them out there and be found and be seen and be sharing their knowledge and expertise and their passion and their purpose. So we're really working around creating that network of influence and opportunities for business women to step up and be a part of something that's a really, really pragmatic movement. So to do that, we focus on leadership, on business improvement, personal growth, influence and profile, and of course, connecting and making awesome friendships, which is such a really big part of it. And being a national community, we're very much about connecting women across sectors, across states and across professions. But what we share, we're not like-minded women. We're very different in the way we think and what we bring to the table, but we share these values. We share the values of inclusion and diversity. We really want to be getting more women that from different cultural backgrounds to come and be a part of what we're about. So please be the eyes and ears for that. It's a really important part, I think, for our next 12 to 18 months, authentic growth, because it's with that diversity that we can really do some very interesting and creative things together. So being positive and optimistic is a part of it, but also being real and authentic. I had a beautiful, beautiful group of women around the table the other night discussing everything around intuition and leadership, and there were tissues on the table. So we aren't always feeling great, but we're very optimistic about what we can do and how we can be real and how we can make a difference. So there's loads of benefits about being a part of this community, not just things like this, masterminds and panel events, but there's lots of access to other people who can be your support. And we couldn't do what we do without our national partners. Solo accounts, we have Donna Vincent on the line, and she's part of our group. She does, and her team do so much in the background around our accounts and our reporting, our invoicing, all that stuff that her and her team are so good at and that I'm absolutely suck at. So Donna and the team, Solo accounts are brilliant. Jessica has defined what it is for us to really be a real powerhouse around leading for the future. In fact, has designed an amazing, very short, intensive mastermind masterclass course specifically for business women. And watch this space. We've had some great ones so far, and there'll be some new dates coming out for that. And Jessica also leads our relationship with our education partners, Torrens University Australia, and has done a wonderful job with that. We couldn't have that amazing relationship without Jess's fantastic partnership management around that. In the background, of course, these types of organisations need a lot of digital stuff, all the websites, the social media, the campaign management, and that's Kathy Smith in Catco Enterprises. Kathy and her team are endlessly patient. We keep throwing more and more and more at this group, and they really are amazing in the way that they pivot and can keep up with all our amazing ideas. And of course, Anne-Marie Cross, the podcasting queen. She's a phenomenal partner. For those of you who really want to raise your profile and get seen and visible, this is becoming a premium member and working with Anne-Marie around developing and designing a podcast interview that really helps you amplify your message, really gets you to think about the pointy end of your business and your strategy. So I can't recommend enough actually connecting with Anne-Marie and thinking about how you might be able to do that. Of course, Fire Up Coaching, our recent partnership, we've just signed on this amazing agreement with Fire Up. We're now offering a Business Women Australia accredited coaching course. It's powered by Fire Up. They're an RTO. They're one of the only RTOs in Australia that offers coaching accreditation that also works towards the International Coaching Federation, ICF standard. And Kathy McKenzie, who's the powerhouse behind there, I tell you what, she's an inspiration. So if you're thinking about a pathway in the future that involves an accredited coaching, then this is a great option now that we can offer. I think there's a June intake coming up. Lots going on. Oh my God, when I put this up, I was like, oh, I thought May was bad. And then I was actually putting June in and I'm thinking, gee, we are so prolific. I would say we are probably the most active business association in Australia. We are consistently now putting on online and in-person events. We've got a Melbourne event coming up on the 4th of June, but there's some awesome online events coming up as well. So for those of you who are really at this point where you're looking to scale and build your hustle, the 29th of May with Anne-Marie Cross, that would be another really good one for you to jump into. It's again free. For anyone, you can be considering becoming a member as long as you like. I'm not going to be chasing you out and go, oh, you know, you've done lots of free online events when you're joining. That's not a problem. If, you know, just it's about you getting in and tapping into this amazing knowledge set. And there's another one on the 29th of June that I'm doing with Anne-Marie, which is about, what's that one about? Oh, actually, it's not building. Is it building a profitable business for coaches and consultants? Yeah, it might be. Okay, they sound like they're the same. I have to have a look at that. I think one of them's meant to be around purposeful podcasts. But anyway, watch this space. There you go. I'll put it up there without even looking at that. But become a member if you can. If you can afford it, we'd love to have you throw some money at us. It helps us make these things happen. It helps us pay our contractors. $399 for 12 months for a classic member is nothing really when you look at the opportunity that we bring you. If you want to work with us and get a podcast happening, an event, what have you, now is the time to join as a premium. I'd love to hear your ideas about co-creation and collaboration if you do want to be one of our leaders. So don't forget that's an option. And of course, Torrens Uni, another way, a wonderful thing that all our members get access to are these short courses. They're 45 to 90 minutes. You can see the prices on there. They're all free for our members. So there's like something like 36 or 40 short courses. They are brilliant. They're all evidence-based. They're all do-it-yourself, your own pace, and you do get a little certificate. It's not an accredited course, but it's definitely a great way to refresh your knowledge and to build your knowledge. So keep an eye on our podcasts. We're always doing some fabulous interviews with real women, extraordinary but everyday women who are doing great things in their businesses, who are willing to share their knowledge. And tomorrow we announce the scholarship winner. So one of the great things about Torrens Uni is that we've been able to award some scholarships. Last year, Kylie Clark was awarded 100% scholarship to do her MBA. And we'll be announcing another 100% scholarship winner tomorrow. But in addition to that, there's a whole bunch of mini scholarships that we award. I think we awarded 5 15% mini scholarships last year as well. So we're really proud of this partnership, and well done, Jess, for really working that partnership so well with Jessica Pascoe and the team at Torrens University Australia. It's a phenomenal friendship, and we work really hard together making this happen and getting this out there to really help women who want to go and get a qualification. So follow us, share, connect, engage with us across all our social media channels. We have a big LinkedIn group. It's free to join. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course we have a private Facebook group for those who actually do join as a classic or a premium level member. And our events are always quite different. They're very diverse depending on the leaders that we're working with. They might be wine tasting soirees in Brisbane, or they might be conscious, courageous conversations with Vida, or webinar and panel events like this, or in-person panel events. But it's a place where it's a safe space for everyone. There's no judgments. It's social. There's always a bit of fun, but it's always about sharing real knowledge from real women who are, working successfully and in their business with expertise to share. So we are going to, what we'll do is we'll just go and I think head straight into our panel event. I'm really keen to hand over to Jess now, and Jess can really then be able to give a bit of an intro on our amazing panel. They are phenomenal. Everyone's from a different kind of area within their expertise zone, and so much to share. So thanks very much. I'm going to sit here, but when you see me go onto a picture, I won't walk you through my house. I'm not quite sure what's going on out there, but I'll get back on again when I hop out the back, away from the vacuum cleaner. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lynn, and welcome everyone. Welcome everyone who's, and I'm just keep on admitting here, which is amazing. Love for everyone to come in. Welcome to this amazing panel event, from side hustle to business. And Lynn, you can stop sharing. I think when we see each other, I will introduce the panel in a second as well. From side hustle to business is such an important topic that's been discussed all the time and that a lot of us live. And it's close to my heart because that's shaped the last 15 years or so of my life. Women in Australia make up a third of all Australian business operators. That's 34%. And there, in fact, has been a 40% increase in the number of women business operators of the past 2 decades. More than 2 in 5 women business operators are aged 40 to 54. And what that tells us is, first of all, it's never too late to start your own business, either a side hustle or taking it into, a full business. And the other thing that it tells me, that the number of women who want to monetize on their passion or, follow their dream, generate an income stream, to really have flexibility and independence is growing, not just in Australia, worldwide. But I see this all around me. We have conversations about what is coined the side hustle, or starting a business, following a dream. And quite often it's so closely connected to a passion and a purpose, which is amazing, because when we use our strength and we connect to our purpose, our growth is exponential. So often these dreams start with what's coined the side hustle or the side gig. And, often that happens while we're either fully employed or we raise kids, or our kids, as a matter of fact, are moving out from home and we have time to look at this again, or we're already running a business. Today, we're going to share stories, insights, and strategies on how to do this successfully. Because the questions I get and, the challenges that I see is that, especially amongst women, there is still a level of, lack of self-confidence to take this step, either go from a side hustle to a business, or even following a dream. Yeah, there's also the actual not knowing how to. Yeah, and as you get older, the world has really changed. What are the tools I need? Yeah, not just from a financial point of view, but how can I get this monetized and advertised, and how can I position myself in this very competitive market? And all of these things we're going to discuss today. And I really hope, write lots of questions down as we go through. Raise your hand if you have a very urgent question between, but we have ample time in the end for you to tap into all of us, including Lynn, to ask questions. So my name is Jessica, and I'm your host today. And I'm going to introduce the panel in a minute. I'm the founder of Intact Teams, how Lynn already explained to you, and I'm the head of leadership development at Business Women Australia, another side hustle I took on. I'm originally from Germany. If you wonder what that weird accent is, I also have a raspy voice. I had this voice when I was 4 years on. So Lynn, I can totally relate to you. And when I was a little girl, I was being made fun of. So now I'm really proud of my raspy voice. I haven't lived in Germany for over 20 years. I've lived and worked in New Zealand, in Sydney and Melbourne. Then I moved to Asia for 6 years, Hong Kong and Japan. And I've moved back about 5 years ago to Melbourne. I've got a corporate background. So I used to lead large cross-cultural sales teams all across Asia Pacific. I always wanted to run my own business, but I never knew what that was. So I considered cafes and, other services industries, but I always knew it has to be, the idea and the purpose has to be right for me. And I was always passionate about leading people. So I loved my job as a sales director, but also knew I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life, working for large corporates. In 2013, almost by fluke, I did find my passion. I was doing my coaching accreditation course, something similar to what we are offering through BWA now that Lynn just mentioned. And that was to be able to become a better coaching leader. I wasn't even thinking of taking this to my side hustle. But what I learned in the course was so impactful that I will never forget sitting in my red taxi in Hong Kong in the rain from Wan Chai back to Central. And I thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I literally just started coaching people on the side and then carved out the plan to grow my side hustle. And I knew I'm going to run this as a full business one day. But my story is different from other people's stories. And I know that every story is unique. I was not one of those people who then just hung up their career, straight away and changed from the side hustle and, went all in like we read on social media all the time. In matter of fact, it took me 7 years to make my side hustle a full business. So only in February this year, I gave up what was a full-time job, part-time job, then the last 2 years, a contracting consulting job to now run Intact Teams full-time. And I needed that time to be able to learn the trade, figure out who I am, how to position my own business, to create IP. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a book right now, which, I never thought was possible 7 years ago. But I also needed the financial safety to know that I'm safe and I have the freedom to learn, develop, position, and get out there and do the actual work. So why I'm telling you this story is that I got sort of off my path sometimes, or I really doubted myself because I saw all this stuff on social media, all these stories of, 3 hacks to get $50,000 months in the shortest amount of time. I turned around my career into business in 7 months, and here's a model for that. And, I was sort of like, thrown off the way sometimes by all this success that I saw. And whilst that, that will, happens probably to a lot of people, I managed to stay true to myself and said, no, this is my way, my path and my story, and I need time. And it also is never like it looks from the outside. So if you see people who claim to have, built their business and launched their business and have $50,000 months within 3 months, that's very unlikely. So follow your own way. Make sure that you're comfortable with the way you either start your side hustle or go from side hustle to full business. Learn what you can and do the hard work and take all of these insights, but it's your it's your story and it's your path. So that's my little tip I want to give on your way, because you're good enough and you know how to do this and when is the right time. So enough from me. I want to introduce our wonderful panel, and I'm a little intimidated because I'm surrounded by, people and by women who have had amazing careers and still have, and they've certainly taken their business to very, very high levels. And I can't wait to hear your stories and learn from you. So to start off, I would like to welcome Sonia La Penna all the way from Brisbane. Sonia made the leap from being an employee to independent freelance executive 4 years ago. She launched her business HR Synergy Consulting in 2017. And she's an accomplished executive with over 20 years of HR experience. Her career extends across a number of industries, including but not limited to retail and distribution, hospitality, health, defense contracting, and financial services. And in 2018, Sonia attained an MBA specializing in leadership and strategy. What an accomplishment, post-grad, while you're building the business. As a freelance executive, Sonia works with boards, CEOs, and executive teams on building organizational capability, culture, and performance. She's also an executive coach working with individuals in their first 100 days of their new job. And what an important part that is in your career. And her program is called Impact 100. Love it. Having made the leap, Sonia has learned that there is so much to pursuing your own business. Some people make it look easy, and that's what I was relating to before, when in fact there are so many things to consider before making the transition to be your own boss. Welcome, Sonia, on this panel. Next up, we have Donna Vincent, all the way from WA, from Perth. And Donna is a fintech entrepreneur. Donna is the founder and managing director of Solo Accounts, an award-winning cloud-based record-keeping system and online bookkeeping solution for SMEs. As a fintech entrepreneur, Donna has successfully designed and managed and developed this system that helps thousands of entrepreneurs around Australia. Donna is also an experienced contract bookkeeper supporting businesses spanning a wide range of professional services industries. And also she is head of Businesswomen Australia's Finance and Accounts. Welcome, Donna. And last but not least, we have Michelle Pascoe from Sydney. Michelle is a successful businesswoman, entrepreneur, speaker, author, coach, trainer, podcaster, and she's also a nana. She established her company Optimum Operating Procedures and Services, better known as OOPS or OOPS, in 1994, helping organizations to lead multi-generational workplaces while creating memorable customer experiences. She established her latest passion project, Second Momentum, to help people to transition from corporate life into a business of their own. Michelle is a premium member of Businesswomen Australia, and we've obviously known and worked with her for a very long time. And I couldn't be prouder to be amongst such accomplished women, and I can't wait to hear your stories. And I'd like to start, before I dig into questions, I'd like to go around the room. And I would like to actually start with Michelle. Tell us about your story, your business, then your new side hustle. How did you experience creating your own business and then having a second momentum and focusing on, on the shift of your second side hustle? Michelle, what's your story?
Thank you, Jess, and everybody here listening in and on the panel. It's wonderful to be here. Unlike yourself, Jess, I found myself back in 1994 with two very young children, and I went through the most horrific job interview. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the details, but believe me, I come from high executive positions, and it was shocking. And even though the money was good, it was close to home, and I was offered the position, the values were not aligned. Like, they were totally polar opposite. So I went home, and my parents were a little bit older because I have much older brothers, and unfortunately my mother was very sick with cancer, and I made the decision then, knowing that I wasn't going to have the support to go back into travel into full-time employment. I just said, that's it, I'm going to start my own business. So with my parents' a blessing in the sense that they'd already had businesses, said, yes, go ahead. had no money in the bank. I certainly couldn't even go for a loan in the position that I was in. And I started, no social media back then, got out of the car, walked from business to business, handing out my business cards and my tri-folder little brochure that I had made on Publisher, which I don't think even exists anymore on computers. Years roll on, I build a very large training and research company here. Prior to the pandemic, I had 70 employees. We dealt mostly with the hospitality industry. I created my own proprietary software, so we look at all aspects of business. So the business grew from absolutely nothing, believing in myself, but others also believing in me and growing into a very successful business. But I always hark back to what I had started out with in the real early days in helping people start their own businesses. And that's where I really thought hard about second momentum. Once the pandemic hit, I thought, no, this is what I'm going to stick to. So I have pushed my main company away. I have very few clients to what I had. I don't have the employees that I once had, and I'm focusing on second momentum. And that's been a side hustle for the last 12 months, and it's a big thing to do, to leave money on the table to something that I absolutely love and helping others.
Wow, I can just imagine. And, thank you for sharing. And obviously I know this from, having worked with you for a long time now, that, you already have a full business, right? But it's not just about, the money. It is about, there's a purpose that's much closer now. And it doesn't matter when in life that changes, right? If you follow that passion and that purpose, and now you're helping people, with, what you've done so well. So amazing. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you for sharing. I've got more questions for you. I'd like to go to Donna, fintech entrepreneur. Tell us your story. How did that all happen? How did you move into that? And how did you make it a side hustle and now, a very substantial business?
Hi, Jess. Hi, everyone. Gee, it was not something that I had thought about for a long time. I'm one of those pushed into a business out of necessity. Well, it was a choice, but I was in a very long-term relationship and was dumped. So we had a business together. So I had to then move out of that business and chose to work for myself because I always have. And it was a choice of going back and doing contract bookkeeping or finding something else to do. But that's what I'm good at. But when I thought about it, what I liked most about bookkeeping was the mess. I like it when you get that mess to start with and you use your skills and your jigsaw puzzles mind and you fix it up. And when it's neat and tidy, I'm not really interested in it. But when I thought about it, the people that needed the most help were sole traders, and they won't engage a bookkeeper. One, it's usually in such a mess they don't know what to hand over. They can't afford them because good bookkeepers don't come cheaply. They're value for money, but they don't come cheaply. So I just thought, I know what they need, and they don't need complex software. They need something really simple. We just need to go back to something simple. And I thought, well, I can do this. So I could picture it in my mind. I could picture what the software had to do, what it had to spit out. And so I just started asking around, finding out where I could get help in that direction. And boy, that was it took a year to do it, but it was interesting, and I learned a whole lot of new stuff that I never knew before. So so one of those people that was kind of pushed into being an entrepreneur.
Well, aren't we all glad that, not about the breakup, but aren't we glad, you got pushed into something? Because what I particularly love, Donna, is that you saw a real need in the market. Yeah. When we think about running businesses, we always think about how to position ourselves and what does the website look like and what's the best marketing, branding, advertising, right? It starts with the client, yeah. And I love this story that's really client-centric to solve a problem, right? Amazing story. Thank you, Donna. And I've just wrote an additional question there for you that came out of your narrative. So thank you for being on the panel. And over to Sonia. Sonia, after 20 years, of a corporate career to, move into a side hustle or move into, what's now the full business. How did that happen to you, and how did you experience that shift?
Thank you. It's great hearing the other stories. Mine was, to be honest, was burnout. I was exhausted. I worked in very large organizations, and I ended up working for a bank. I don't know why I did that, but anyway, I made some great connections and people. But I realized that, I guess, people say, what do you want to do? And you kind of do it for so many years, and you think, oh my God, do I want to be doing this the same way for the next 20 years? So for me, it was burnout, being in executive roles. And my life had changed, and it didn't fit my new world with kids and a partner and living in Brisbane and the challenges that come with that as well. I was compromising my life left, right, and centre, and that just led to burnout. And I did my MBA because I was bored with myself. I wanted to think differently and be with different people and not be chasing this political, we call it the ego jungle. I'm like, I'm done, man. I'm done. So I came back from a holiday in Italy with my family, sat down with the CEO, and I said, I'm done. I just want out. And I left. I had already been thinking for a year about building my own business and doing what I do with a number of different businesses. And hence why I made the leap. But it does need quite a lot of pre-planning. And I wouldn't say to people, as I've spoken to a lot of professionals over the last 2 years, I would say, they go, I want to do what you've done. And I'm like, I know it looks really great from the outside, but let me tell you what you need to consider along the way. It is possible, but, don't just take it for what you see on the outside of the cornflakes packet. Be real. So HR Synergy Consulting was born, and now more and more the marketplace is growing with freelance executives. And we have women just like us here today that we're super experienced. We have all this skill of capability, and you go, what are the ways that I can link into business channels and work and do what I do on my terms and do it in my own way. And hence why that you'll hear freelance executive a lot more, and you have the marketplaces now with digital platforms that have come to front and center, where millions of people around the globe are now saying, hey, why do I have to work for one organization? I can work for multiple. If any of you have been on boards or have interacted with boards of companies, they're a freelancer. They provide their capability, knowledge, expertise to a number of different companies, and they get paid handsomely to do that. So think about it on an executive level. Why can't we do that for medium-sized enterprises that don't necessarily want to spend, or can afford that six-figure salary, but need that capability to grow and drive and reposition their business? So that's where I see the niche in the market, and where there's a growing supply and absolutely a demand out there. It's about marrying the two.
Yeah, amazing, Sonia. And I can really relate to the stepping from executive in helping multiple businesses. As a coach, I realize I've coached a lot of executives, and quite often they ask me the question. They're like, how can I do what you do? Yeah, and it's just not as easy as, well, I've been an executive for 20 years, I'm just going to call myself a coach and help other people, because I'm coaching people. So, to have a pathway of, learning, maybe even, in coaching, I definitely believe in accreditation, and doing it right. There's a real good path. And to be honest, we've seen exploding numbers during COVID as well. A lot of senior people and very experienced executives, find themselves either burned out, or through restructure have lost their jobs. And there's a real opportunity to step into that. But you got to do it right. And I find my story, of course, it was a little bit longer. It took me 7 years. But, starting in a side hustle is such a great idea. I call it it's like your apprenticeship. It's your playground where you can, really find what works for you without having to, hang up the your either business or your job. And it's a good segue in to the first question I want to ask you, Sonia. If we stay sort of with side hustle, and we ask ourselves the question, like, why side hustle? Because as you say, it may appear to be the answer to achieving your dreams. And, it can look really shiny, but there are also really things we have to consider, when we create our side hustle. So what would be the key things for you that you would like to share for people who consider a side hustle?
I'd say start with your why. Why do you want to do it? And to be honest, a lot of people that I've met over the years have started it because it's an income stream for them. So they can't get any more money at work. And they go, I need to have another $10,000 a year or another $5,000 a year. And they start quite small. And, I'll give you an example, selling coffee equipment. They loved coffee. They had a passion for coffee. They were always in cafes, but that wasn't their main job. And they slowly built up this almost like a supplementary income. And Donna, you would have seen that over the years, maybe with clients too. So I guess it's kind of like starting with your why, and don't be embarrassed, it doesn't always have to be, I'm passionate because I want to help these people. Sometimes it's out of necessity. People separate. People need to pay for their bills. So start with your why is what I'd say. And then once you do that, you go, well, who can help me do this? Because don't think you can do it on your own. So reach out to your network. And if you don't have your network, start with your mum's groups. Start with, people that you've worked with before. Ask the questions and put yourself out there. And this is not big business development. This is just you starting it up. Do you have that advantage today? So start with your why and then reach out to people that can really help you set it up. And you'd be surprised at how many people are willing just to help you get the leg up that you need. Then you can go from there. Yeah.
It's so hard for us, especially with women in business and executives and, their own businesses, asking for help. I think we are used to do it all by ourselves, right? We raise the children, we look after the husbands, we run the household, and we have a job and we run businesses. It's about, your tribe. And for me, over the last 4 or 5 years, this has been Business Women Australia. I call, Lynn and Donna all the time where, we brainstorm about stuff that's going on. And I think I talk more about my business than, Business Women Australia when we talk. She's such a great help. And, there is help up there. Plus, there are, programs you can, join. And Sonia, I don't know if your 100 Days program is focused on, when you go into a career, or if you offer something like that for new entrepreneurs as well.
I haven't done it with new entrepreneurs. I've done it for organizations, either because they can, organization pays for them. So there's a funding part of it. But I'm happy to explore that idea, Jessica. That's a great idea for entrepreneurs. But I really think that asking for help, and it's not always your partner. You don't always have a partner. You're building your own world and independence, but reaching out to the tribe. Absolutely, Jessica. I totally agree with that. And there's a lot of free stuff out there.
Absolutely.
You search enough. But don't try and reskill it. That was the other thing too. There are a lot of people on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'll be curious to hear from the other panel members, that are trying to sell you stuff. They're like, do this marketing course, do this course, do this course. And I'm like going, I'm not a marketing guru. I just want to get an appreciation of it. Then I want to reach into my network and have somebody do it for me, because you cannot be an expert in it. And that's what they try and sell you. They try and sell you that you can do it all yourself. And the reality is, you can't. That's the reality. I found that out for myself, going, I can do this. I'm like, no. You do need the help along the way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I had a bit of a diversion from, I work with executives and groups and in tech teams within organizations. And about 2 years ago, I was sort of on this bandwagon that I have to, offer pre-recorded online courses. And, then I got bombarded with, this sort of, make $50,000 a month with your online courses. It actually wasn't me. And I'm like, this is actually not my client. And I went back and I worked with Anne-Marie out of our group, who got me back up to the Nate and straight and narrow. Sonia, like you said, what's your why? Who do you want to help, right? And we have someone here, one of our panelists, who does this sort of work. Michelle, you help people to take a leap of faith to follow their passion, or a dream. And even if that means saying goodbye to a wage, or in your case, a well-established company. So you call it the second momentum. Michelle, how did you know when the right moment was for you to, make that leap of faith? And what advice do you give women who are considering following their dream, or they might be afraid of, they don't know when that moment is, or they actually have that fear to make the leap? What's your advice there?
And look, I agree with what you're saying also, Sonia. You do have to find your why, but some people believe that it has to be this overnight epiphany, or they're in the shower, or they're looking out and it will come to them. And sometimes it does, and that's wonderful. I think where I saw it from my point of view was that it was something that I had done right from the very start, back with the NEACE program, consulting to mission employment, seeing people have the most amazing ideas who were actually on a government benefit back then. And I was able to give them some tips and strategies. And I was still building my business as well, back in the early days then. But just seeing how people that may not have always had the financial backing, but also the education to start, they just believed in themselves. And I think that's what's important, is that what you can do for yourself and choosing the life. So I've done a lot of work with choice theory over the years, and I truly believe that, nobody can control you. You choose the life that you want and that you deserve. But I also understand that people do have to put food on the table, and it's lovely to have these beautiful dreams, and you will make money. But it is a journey. And what you were saying, and Sonia, that a lot of people may have a fantastic skill set. And I've heard it myself saying, look, I've been an executive for a long time. I don't need any help about how to start a business. And I said, look, that is fine. But having that skill set, you've got to be able to know all those moving parts. And as all the women on, this recording today in this webinar would know, that there are so many moving parts that you may be good at some, you may need assistance in others. I do believe, though, it is important to know all the aspects of your business, at least have an idea of that. So when you are, going out and seeing it as a VA or as a bookkeeper, that you've got a little bit of information, particularly when it comes to financials. I've heard and stories in the past, and clients that I've known that have believed in what somebody has told them, and not knowing how that operated in their business, perhaps lost money or were taken down, a route that really wasn't part of what they really wanted to do. And I think, that was a little bit what Sonia was saying. You said you can go down these routes and Donna, and you sort of think to yourself, is this really what I want to do? I really want to do something very specific. So when I made this decision, and certainly, I to be honest, I think if COVID wouldn't have happened, it didn't happen, even though I started up Second Momentum in January 2020, I had this crutch because I had this amount of money and this business. So, I sort of doubled in it. I truly, when I had the conversation with Lynn last year, she got me all inspired. I said, yes, that's fantastic. But then life goes on, the business takes over. But during that last 15 months was really thinking, did I want to go back to having all those employees, having all those clients, loving what I did, traveling the world, speaking, etc. It was great. But was that giving me joy? And that, as Sonia said, you've got to ask about your why, but you've also got to think about what your joy is. What gives you joy? And if that is something that you are doing on the side, or something that, you dream about or you want to do, then listen to that little voice and bring it to the forefront of your mind and your heart, and work on how you can make this a business. And you can. and you will, and it will grow. But yeah, it takes blood, sweat, tears, a whole lot of passion and love and, you know, long nights. But if this is what really drives you, if this is your joy, if it follows and is living the values of your life, then just do it. Don't ever wait for that right time, because it won't ever come. It's like people going, oh, I can't have a child, or I can't do this. Like, no, I've got to wait for that right time. That right time won't come. You're in charge. You're in control. So you choose and go for it. And you know what? I've always said, if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. There's no shame in that. At least you've given it a great go. You can always return to the workplace, and there is no shame in that whatsoever. But at least you've given it a go. That's how I feel.
Yeah. Oh, Michelle, I love how you say, you know, like find out what you actually enjoy doing, right? In Lead the Future, in our Business Women Australia leadership program, we do an exercise in, you know, the first session where it's all about using your strength for exponential growth. And your strength are not just your traits and your skills, you know, your technical skills. It's really about, you know, strength is an activity that makes you feel strong, yeah, and a weakness is an activity, or can be an activity that makes you feel weak. And so you can actually be good at something, but if you hate it, yeah, and I give everyone, you know, if you run your own business or you work in a job, everyone has 25% of their job or business they don't enjoy so much. Get over it, yeah, it's always that part. Just don't give it too much energy, yeah. But when you actually sit down and you map out, you know, here's what, when I do this, I feel strong. Yeah, that makes me feel strong. This makes me feel, you know, weakened. That's when you find, I'm enjoying this. I'm also good at this. Yeah, and it's much stronger. You know, we have to, like, we can't just go, what am I good at? What's needed out there? It's a journey. It's a process of finding this stuff out, right? So, you know, take your time and, you know, work with people like Michelle to, you know, get to that core. And you're right. Like, you know, don't wait. Do your job. Map it out. You have to have a plan in place. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But don't wait for something to happen. Yeah, don't wait. It's that, you know, Dr. Adam Fraser calls it the happiness movement, where we have this perverted idea of that. Positive emotions are good and negative emotions are bad. And we wait for the positive emotions to come and feel good so we can do something. Whereas, you know, resilient people and people who, you know, get going, they action anyway. You know, can't all feel, you know, the right moment. We have to do it. But you're right. I have seen, and I've got lots of friends who, you know, fell over at, you know, the point where, you know, the finances weren't right. And that is important. And I'd like to go to you, Donna. My question for you is, and, you know, this is absolutely your field, you know, financially, how do you know when is the best time, you know, to go full time with your side gig? What's your advice to everyone here?
Well, it's a little bit opposite to what Michelle's saying. Look, we all go that passionate route, but there's nothing scarier than having no money, and that destroys your self-esteem, relationships, that idealistic dream that you had when you started out. So the best time is when there's that bit of balance. So keep your income coming in the door, but develop that side hustle. And when you feel like you can cover your bills and then spend more time on your passion, that's probably the right time, because you're never going to probably have enough money to dump one and go and do the other. And there will be a time when you're thinking, I have no work-life balance. All I'm doing is, you know, sort of working on something that's making me no money. But there will be a crossover there somewhere where you go between being able to have enough money to support you and then move into that dream. But it is a lot of hard work. You know, I mean, some people are very lucky. You know, I guess there are a few people through COVID had that instant market and they became really successful overnight, but you know, there were a lot that went the other way. But I think just generally it's just know that you're going to have to work hard and not be earning much money with your passionate thing or your new idea. So just find that balance, and then it will just be not pulling so many heartstrings, because as I said, there is nothing more fearful than not knowing where your next dollar is coming from.
My accountant said to me when I started this, he said, Jess, you need a cash reserve an absolute cash reserve, not like your savings, but this just for that helps you to, live, pay rent and pay bills for at least 12 months, without having any income. If you have that, then, was that, and I did that, but like, is that a good rule of thumb, or what would be your rule of thumb?
Yeah, sure. And I think you also have to understand sometimes it's gambling money, because there's not always a guarantee that your idea is going to work. So be prepared that, can you live with the worst case scenario? Yeah, and if you can, then that's when you should go for it. If it means that you put $10,000, $50,000, $200,000 into a new business, but it doesn't work out, can you live with that? And most of us that are passionate about something go, yeah, I'm giving it a go. But that's part of the excitement of doing it. But it's just that, have that reserve, because quite often you just, that you see that meme of where that person is digging the tunnel and then you can see the diamonds just on the other side of that wall, and they give up just before they get to the diamonds. If you've got that cash reserve, it just gives you that confidence that you can keep going, and and I think hopefully you've got people around you that are a mix of people who are looking at things with a business mind and offering you helpful suggestions, and those people that are dreamers and passionate about things, and they're offering you suggestions, and you can just find the difference between the two that's going to work for you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing, Donna. It certainly, helped me to look, to have that, thinking. It was even in COVID when, in March, I was faced with very little unpaid, little paid work, because all my face-to-face business, just disintegrated, due to COVID. But when I actually I just brushed off sort of, and, when, I looked at my accounts and I looked at what's there, and I've just, had a really clear picture of how long I can survive because no one knew what was happening, right? How long can I survive if I don't make a penny, a cent in the next, 12, 24 months? I'm like, actually, it's not that bad. I don't want to go there, but that gave me the confidence to know everything is going to be all right. I can now focus. I can stop worrying, because when we worry, our creative brain and our cognitive ability, stops, and, we're just, adrenaline, and we've got fear. So, I think having a sound financial plan without, going overboard, without letting it procrastinate us, is really, really sound advice. Thank you. So we've got the passion from Michelle, and we've got the no, but you got to make sure your ducks are in a row. So I'm going to go to Sonia and ask her, when did you know, and what would your advice be when it's time to make the transition and the perfect moment to becoming your own boss?
It's really individual, to be honest. It really is where you're at with that life cycle, so to speak. Sometimes you're catapulted into it because you're made redundant. Sometimes it's kind of like an environmental factor where you go, oh, sink or swim. What do I do now? So for me, my trigger was my health, and I didn't have that. I couldn't see myself pushing any further without destroying myself. So that for me was my trigger. For others, it'll be, oh my gosh, I've established an online business and I'm making cosmetic purses, and I've gone from 20 a week to 1,000 a week orders, and I can go get a loan, and you start seeing a pipeline coming through because there's a demand for your product or service. So we always talk about forward bookings. So if you're a professional and you're in professional services, hoping and praying is on a strategy. You need to make the switch because your forward bookings, your calendar is getting fuller and fuller. And you go, oh gosh, I'm pitching myself at, professionals can pitch themselves anywhere from $1,200 a day. They're going, actually, I'm now going to be hitting my $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month. Actually, I'm going to be doing that for the next 3, 4, 5 months. And it's, a retainer projects or a project that you may have landed through the government. So there will be different triggers for different people. But forward, one of the tricks is going, what does my forward calendar look like 3 months from now? If you're starting early, don't worry about beyond 12 months, just start with your month to month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Look at it in that way, and that starts to build your confidence too.
Yeah, really practical advice, Sonia. Thank you. To, not get overwhelmed by, how can I make a decision? We also got to remember, we are left brain, right brain people, right? Some of us need, a little bit more structure, and some of us are more guided by our intuition. So even finding that out, and then, finding that right way. But yeah, don't procrastinate, but be sound. Talking about sort of practical approaches, because we want all of you to walk away with some practical steps as well. Michelle, what is your practical advice to grow an idea or a side hustle into a business? What does it take practically?
Yes, apart from the passion. I do agree with what Donna says. You do need some money, because yes, you do need to eat sometimes. To me, it's automations and systems and procedures is something that I connected really early on in my business, and I will put my hands up to it. I was not the best about that, and I just thought, I could recreate it every time, but oh my goodness, the amount of time, particularly when you're starting off in business and you're writing proposals, or you could create those into templates, and a lot of people go, I'll just do it. But if you create a system and procedure where you do create templates, and I'm not talking about cutting and pasting, you've still got to connect it with people, but there's a lot of things that we say over and over and over again, or we may, as I said, writing proposals, that you could create a template, use a part of it, and then add to it naturally to connect with the person. I cannot stand cutting and pasting. There's just no connection whatsoever. But look at your systems and procedures. So when you do get to the time to start building a team, whether that's a VA or whether, it's perhaps one of your children or a good friend for a couple of hours a week, give them that system, show them that procedure. And there's lots of free apps that you can use, whether you go into something paid like Monday, or whether you've got, Google Sites. You can have all that information there, because too often we fall back on, well, nobody else is going to do it as good as me, so I'll just do it. And what that takes away is trusting somebody else. And sure, they may not do it as well as you, but if you don't trust and delegate that to somebody, then your head just fills up. And as your business grows, you've got so much, what Sonia was saying, it just creates this overwhelm. And then you start to procrastinate because you've got so much to do. You keep just, a little hamster in the wheel. So to me, the practicality is create systems, create procedures, and then start creating automation.
Yeah,
okay, that's the best.
Oh, Michelle, it's like you're like talking to me right now, because I've just been through, implementing, that my CRM actually talks to Zoom, and, I learned about what Zapier does for you. So, yeah, my business coach certainly said, Jess, you need to work in a more prolific way when it comes to being productive. All you want to do is, write IP, talk to new clients, and facilitate to clients, right? So I've actually just hired some help as well, and, and have automated my systems, and it makes all the difference, because the time you spend, you're very expensive as a business owner, right? So, you have to decide like what time, do you spend on what, and what can you outsource? And that's a big step as well, knowing the system, what helps your business, but also being able to, get the right resources and get the right help. And, talking about help, and I've got sort of an additional question there, Donna, I want to go to you, because I'm really intrigued by, that you took on, fintech entrepreneurship. And I don't know your whole background, but I'm pretty sure that, it's would be a different life to go, okay, I'm actually, I'm putting a platform, a tool up there, because that's coding and programming, and you always had the end game in mind of, I'm going to help people, I'm going to solve problems for people, but I also need a platform. So who helped you with that, and how did you manage that side of fintech side of things and the technical side of things?
Well, I didn't do the coding, I can tell you that now. It's funny how technology works. So when you're developing an app or a computer program, you actually start in reverse. So what are your users going to see when they look at a screen? And then you work backwards from there. So when you press a button, what's happening in the background? So you sort of work backwards. So I knew what I wanted to look like when it was finished, and I knew what was supposed to happen in the background, but I didn't actually realise that's how it actually happened. You draw what it's supposed to look like, and then when it says, next, you have to know what's happening behind that next button. So it's a bit of a flow chart. But luckily for me, that's how my brain works. I could see the process of what was supposed to happen and the formulas and how it all interconnected in my mind. So drawing that out of me was not a hard thing to do. And I guess that comes from how I find bookkeeping easy. I know what happens when you look at Xero, MyOb, QuickBooks, any of those programs, because that's my background, and I actually learned to bookkeep with a pen and paper. That's showing my age. I know what those programs do because I understand the process. So they are not simple programs, and they do sophisticated stuff. And this is where people fall down when they go to use them, is they are expecting, they're very intuitive these days. People are very clever in the way to develop software, but they still need people to use them. So they are fancy calculators. So you can't just buy a program and that is designed for someone with skill and just expect it to do what it's supposed to do. So I think when you're choosing your software for your procedures, you need to have some sort of either training or support network that goes with it. Otherwise, you just got all of this software and you just get into a bigger mess. So yes, systemizing is really important, but you need to choose the product that suits you and your business and your ability. And that's why I went down the path I went, because I knew how sophisticated this software was and what you needed to do to use it. And it's just too hard for some people. When all you need to do is record some simple income and some simple expenses, you don't need something that analyzes things to bits or breaks it into, a million different areas and just confuses you. You just need something simple. So that's what you should do. If you've got a CRM, well, if you've only a small business, you just need it doing basic stuff. All of these other things, don't look for the biggest and the best. I think that people should look at how they want their business to grow, because it's really nice to get into a product that will help you grow. But if you are just an executive consultant or, a freelance executive, you don't need super sophisticated accounting software. You just need something simple. You just need to record your income, know your expenses, spit that out for a tax return. And same with other products and systems. So understand where you're going to pick the right software for whatever part of your business it is. But just you don't need the biggest and best every time, because all it's going to do is create work for you.
Yes, absolutely. And I love how you say that, because, I know that solo accounts, solves that problem in such a simple way. People don't need to, get into MyOp if they are solopreneur. You also don't need Salesforce.com as a CRM when you're solopreneur, right? Rather use something simple and it's full of really good data than having a software or platform that's so complicated that you don't use it, because those platforms are only as good as the data you put in, right? But
exactly. Yeah. Rubbish in, rubbish out. It's to have something that's simple, that gives you good information, than something that is just creating work for you. But you know what, Jess, there's nothing wrong with outsourcing. And I love that. I think it was Sonia that said that understand parts of your business as you're growing, understand what's happening. Oh, might have been Michelle, sorry. Michelle, yeah. I think I say to people, it's important to understand your financials. And sometimes that is for sole accounts people, I sound like a salesperson here and I'm not meaning to just print out a simple report and you start seeing, oh, gee, I'm paying a lot of money for a specific item in my business, or I'm paying twice, or, and all that means is just printing out a very simple report and it's in your face then. Like, we have lots of stuff in our head, And we think something's going on, but when you see it on paper, you see facts and figures, it brings a whole different light into the way you think. And I think that's why it's really important for people to start, because I do get asked, when should I start using an accounting system or recording stuff? It's really important to do it from the very beginning, because you give yourself this false sense of how much time and money you've spent. And the reason for that is because you're using your credit card, your partner's credit card, your kid's money box. You're using whatever money's available to you, and you're just thinking, oh, it's a little bit of this, it's a little bit of that, it's a little bit of that. But if you're recording how much you're actually spending, you can go, oh, hell, this is actually costing me a lot of money and I'm not going anywhere with it. Or it might be, oh, this is great, I'm actually making money out of this. And also your time, you don't have to record every minute, but just have a rough idea of how much time you're spending, because, you need to be at some point in time paying yourself, because we don't work for nothing.
Yeah.
We do want to be passionate, but you have to be able to pay yourself somewhere down the line. So even if you aren't paying yourself, track your time roughly so that you can help make business decisions, or, you might need it. What you do might turn into something that you can get a research and development grant for, and then time is important. Or you might want to bring in a business partner, and you can go, well, I've already spent 100 hours on this, or 200 hours, and your business partner wants to walk in at the same level. Well, there's a value to what you've done. So, keep a rough, track of that sort of stuff. But I know early on I had a solo accounts user, and some of you may have heard this story before, and she sold horse equipment, and it always sticks with me. And she finally put years of data into solo accounts, and she was tracking where she was going, and she realised that she had one supplier that she actually bought a substantial amount of goods from. And she rang me one day really excited, and she said, oh, Donna, you're never going to believe this. And I said, oh, what? And she said, my biggest supplier is now going to give me a 10% discount, because he didn't know how much I was buying from him until I told him. And I didn't want to burst her balloon. So, I wanted to say, he knows exactly how much he's been selling to you. You just didn't know how much you were buying. And it gives you that power then to negotiate, because, you're in that driver's seat, because he's not going to give you that discount until you point out to him what's going on. So there are all these useful things that are happening in the background of when you're recording information and knowing your financials that a lot of people don't take advantage of. Because let's face it, everybody hates it. They all hate bookkeeping, but it's a really important part of helping your business to grow and run your business. So you don't need to make it complicated. You just need to be doing something that's simple and that you understand and is useful to you.
Yeah, keep it simple, but do it. Sonia's been raising her hand a couple of times. Sonia, if you want to take yourself off mute.
I did hang on a tick. Okay. Donna, I wanted to kind of comment to say, one of the things that I've observed is women being more confident with talking about finances. And you've touched on really something that resonated with me is giving value to non-financial things like time, which you could argue is financial, but, you've got the non-financial and the financial, you've got the, what do you place the value on? And one of the things that I found really helpful is, has anybody heard of Business Model Canvas U or Business Model U as a template? Go to the website, great stuff, download it, it's for free. And it actually, if you're at the stage where you've got an idea that you want to pursue a side gig, it'll help you collate those thoughts on an A4 page. So it talks about, is it a product? Is it a service? What's the value that you bring? What are your activities? What are your partners? What are your costs and revenue? And you just bullet point it in there. And then it's something that you can talk with some trusted others or a trusted circle in BWA going, I need a trusted circle to go, here's an idea, and I've collated my thoughts. So Business Model U is a really great tool to use, Jess. But out of all of that, it's kind of like don't be afraid to talk to finances. Don't be afraid to say, I need help with working all this out. What does that mean for me with that forecast? But yeah, that's why I was raising my hand, talking about the business planning, financials, and how to bring my thoughts and ideas together without sounding scattered or like I don't make sense. How do I make it like, what's the narrative? Even if it's in a draft form, what is it that I'm wanting to do?
Yeah, great. And Bev, thank you very much. She's just put the link to Business Model U in the chat. So if you click on that, it comes up in your browser and you can save it. Thank you, Bev. That's amazing. And thank you, Sonia, for coming up with the link. These are really, really great platforms that give us a framework. Thank you, panelists. Actually, Lynn, will I be able to ask you a question, put you on the spot? So, follow your passion, know your why, what's your purpose, what problem are we going to solve, but also put a practical plan in place so you know actually how to run your business. Have your finances, in place. Don't procrastinate, but find the right balance and go for it. I would like to ask you, being the marketing specialist, what would be your top tip to people who either go into a side hustle or grow from a side hustle to a full business? When it comes to marketing and positioning, what do we have to consider there, Lynn?
Look, you hit the nail on the head, Jess, when you talked about everything has to be customer or client focused. That's the principle of marketing, is actually making sure that everything around your business is there to solve a problem for a customer group. The thing that I have worked out, particularly with women, is that they quite often look at customer groups that have no money in them. So the other side is, if you're going to solve problems for a particular segment of the market, make sure that segment of the market is a lucrative segment of the market, that there's money and that they have the money to spend and buy on your product, that they're not an in-kind kind of market. So, we get a lot of women that want to connect with business women in Australia that want to help other women. And I say to them, well, hang on, where's your expertise? Where's your gift? Where's your experience? If you are the product, and we're talking often in a, it's a professional services sort of, or a coaching or consulting piece in that case. If you're the product, then what does your background, so one might have been a geophysicist for a mining company. What does that background then say to what you can then give to which segment, which client, what, is there a micro segment that could really value that experience that maybe the big mining company or the oil and gas company that you don't want to work for anymore, but there's a segment that there is value, rather than saying, I've had enough, I've experienced all this stuff as a female in a male-dominated environment and I want to coach other women. It's like too big a change, I think. It might be around then bringing that income from consulting, but also doing a bit of coaching on the side for women while as a coach, and then working out how that then sort of fits together. And then thinking about your segment then will dictate everything around your messaging, around where you play. I left corporate working in professional services. I didn't need a website for years, and I'm a marketing person. I didn't have a website. Not everyone needs a website. I had 3 or 4 clients lined up that were going to be my income before I'd even left my job. I turned my full-time corporate role into a part-time role. I actually was starting to do some consulting on the side. By the time I switched across, I had worked out who I wanted in my consulting team and who I'd be placing in which clients, because I had way too much work coming in before I'd even started. I didn't have a website. So I think the sales piece and the business development piece is really important. I was talking to Laurie about this recently because she's developing her business as a consultant, and her superpower is sales. Now, sales is such an important part of the marketing and business development process. And I think a lot of marketing people get caught up in marketing systems and processes without knowing then at what stage do I jump into that process to convert a lead, to have a conversation, to understand if what I've got is going to help them, or if it's better for me to refer them to another person in my trusted advisory network who will then also give me back referrals as well. So creating this ecosystem of sales, business development and marketing and branding that sits around it. that in itself is a really fun thing to map out. The other thing that I've been listening to and amongst this conversation, which I'm finding quite fascinating and typical of females getting together and talking, is that when we have a business idea, we often start with building it and getting it and perfecting it right ourselves, rather than saying, here's my business idea. Who should I be getting as my investor network? Who should I be selling this concept of the business to? What's my business? What's my exit strategy? Why am I doing the business in terms of the long term? Okay, if it's a side hustle that I want to turn into a passion project business that's giving me an income to keep my mind active, that's a different story. But if it's a side hustle that I want to grow as an entity that eventually I want to sell, which is going to fund my retirement, then the product is the business. Who in that business then do I need to pitch through to throw money in that we can scale this very rapidly and market it and grow it as a serious, multi-million-dollar entity? And I think men have an idea about a business. They have a bit of a feel around what it is. They do a bit of research. Then they pitch to other men quite often to chuck money in before they even spend any money on anything. So they start with, $1 million in the bank to play with. So what is it about women? Why are we not even broaching this as a subject? It took Donna years of doing without anything and living on the smell of an oily rag and not freaking paying herself to get investors in. What would have happened? How would that have looked if right at the beginning that it was a co-creation model? Why are we trying to create everything on ourselves? We can't make a baby by ourselves, for freaking sake. So why do we think we can make a fully fledged, amazing, growing, evolving business by ourselves? So think big. Think about the people you want to bring in board. Who do you want to come in? Like Business Women Australia, private entity, the same issue I had with my co-founder. I had this idea of scaling it and bringing in all these different investors, but it was almost like I think so many of us are too scared for putting other people to put their money in case it doesn't work out. And this comes from maybe this value system of being nurturers and carers and supporters and fixers. All my mates that are in business that are men, I tell you what, they've blown, some win, some lose. I mean, I just go, wow, it's just a part of the excitement of life. They'll win on this one, but they might lose on 5. But they don't go back to those mates and say, oh, I'm not going to tell you about my next business idea. Or I've got this other group of people that, I reckon they're worth investing in. They keep doing it. And eventually they'll get a big win on one. So they're just some extra kind of out of the box things I really want you all to think about, is how do you scale it so that it becomes an entity that's of some value, that at the end of the day, when you do want to put your hat down and your shingle off the door or wherever it is, that someone might want to buy that business, that the business is not just you. If it is just you and it's your brand, and there's very powerful ways that people do that, and Jane Anderson is an absolute cracker at the Jane Anderson brand, the whole thing around building a profitable entity that's all focused on you, then that in itself is great, but make sure that you're putting lots of money in your superannuation, because no one will be able to buy you as a brand. Or maybe they will. Richard Branson seems to have managed. But, these are all the things that I think, let's challenge ourselves about just getting some really big, hairy, audacious goals out there and looking at what we need to do to create entities that are serious entities that are employing people. And then when we need to actually be saying to Sonia, we need a HR consultant to help us build our team. We want a high-performing team. What does that look like? How do we fund that team? We're not going to fund it by still thinking of our business as it's kind of like a job, but we have to think of our business as an entity.
Yeah, really good advice, Lynn. And I certainly, have been through, learning this over the last 2 years, and it's really helped me to differentiate. And Sonia just said, perhaps it's a matter of you don't know what you don't know when it comes to business, investment and collaboration. Absolutely. For me, was one of the biggest learning curves was, and I went down the route of, following the, Jane Anderson methodology. It actually comes from the Thought Leadership Business School in Sydney, right? Where, are you running a business? So are you having assets and do you get investors in? Is your exit plan to ultimately, sell the business or list it on, on the stock exchange? or are you running a practice where, you know, you are the, leader, influencer expert, but you know, your profit is really high because you don't have any cost, like everything is outsourced and it's you. But yes, put the money in your superannuation. So it's, you know, which route are you going to go down? And I'm sure there's, you know, then a grey zone of all of these, but that was a really good way for me to know, you know, even from like building, like, what's the brand? Is it Jessica Schubert or is it Intact Teams? You know, and I wish I would have done that differently, but it doesn't matter. I'm on the right track. But it helped me because I've invested in the right coaches, the right consultants, and the right help around me. I didn't just try to do it by myself. And that's where I find it really important to find your way. So really good at it. Challenge there, Lynn. And I love as well, like, you got to be able to sell. Now, there's 50,000 coaches, executive coaches in Australia. And I know, as a matter of fact, a lot of them come from amazing backgrounds to help people, but they can't have a sales conversation if you can't sell your service or products. Yeah. Make sure that you learn it or you get help, because that really helps. That's for sure. Michelle is raising her hand.
Just quickly, I wanted to add what Lynn said, and I feel this time, starting off Second Momentum, I have got this feeling that I can put my hand out and say, I need a bit of help. How do I do this? Collaboration, particularly through BWA. I really love that, because I'll admit, when I first started back in my business in 1994, you didn't collaborate. Collaboration was a sign of weakness. Well, I believed it was. There wasn't any of these sort of networking groups. And the women that I would speak to, they would go, I don't know why you're wasting your time with women in business. It's never going to take off. You just stay with what you're doing. And I know for some listening to this, probably thinking, my gosh, that's really archaic ideas. But that's what it was like. But I kept pushing through. However, others didn't. And what we saw too many times was, whereas what you were saying was men help each other, yes. I think women are starting to do that a lot more, because back then women didn't. I'm at this level now. I worked hard to get here, so you can do it yourself. And they pulled up the ladder behind them. And that was I felt that was a horrible way to think like that. Instead of helping, whether they're male or female, you should help other people. So I really support what Lynn is saying. I think it's a very different world. And I feel truly blessed that this time around creating Second Momentum, I have this collaboration, but also faith in myself that I can ask for help without feeling weak or ashamed or disappointed that I don't know all the answers.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing, Michelle. And Donna's raising hand, and I really want to open the floor to everyone as well. So just take yourselves off mute or raise your hand if you either have a question or a comment. Donna?
Yeah, I also had that written down as well, the whole you don't know what you don't know. But also use your gut instinct. Look, there are still sharks out there. There are people that are going to try and take advantage of you. So go with your gut. Because quite often it will tell you the right direction to take and who to trust, but there are, and I've said this time and time again, there are groups like Business Women Australia that are full of women who will genuinely give you some good, honest feedback and help, and they're not putting their hand out to give it. So you just have to find the right sort of people to talk to, and trust your gut when people are, it's a sales pitch right from the first word that comes out of their mouth, rather than some helpful advice. And going forward, people do business with people that they know and trust. So it's a good start to a direction to maybe having customers. But look, I was one of those people that the financial side of starting a business was not hard or scary for me. Didn't know a zack about marketing. And had I known something about marketing, I might have been successful a lot longer before I was. But it just means, talk to people in areas that you know nothing about, and just start digesting it right from early on. And as Lynn says, you don't have to be an expert at everything when you go out and give it a go. But, know a little bit about lots of stuff and know where you need to get help from. But, go with your passion.
Right. Thank you, Donna.